I would like to ask you a question. What is human life? What is life? We have received life from God. What is life? Each one will have their own answer. I don't want a particular definition or answer of this question. What is life? Let us try to reflect, think about our own life. Why this life is given to me? Why another person has got life? Why Jesus got life? And there are so many people are living with life. Life which is active, alive, and effective. The life is moving always. So the life is working. When we reflect on our own life, first of all, we must acknowledge we have been given, I am given the life from God, by God. I have received life from God. So God has given a special life to us. Because of God's gift, God's blessings, we have received this life. For what reason we have received this life? For what cause we have received this life? The first reason is to know God, to love God, to serve God, to glorify God. In today's gospel we find at the end, seeing your good works, everyone will glorify. So we can glorify through our good works. And this life is meant for only God or only for us. This life is meant for three purposes. The first purpose is this life is meant for God, to know God better, to love God, to serve God. And this life also is not only meant for our own benefit, this life is meant for others. So people, those who give up God, people, those who forget their neighbors, they don't think others. People, those who only think for themselves, that is not a life. It is not a human life. It may be some other life, not the human life. In today's gospel we find Jesus is telling his disciples, you are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. What does it mean? In last Sunday, Jesus said about the Beatitudes. There are Beatitudes. 8 ways, 8 doors are there to enter into the kingdom of God. So there are 8 Beatitudes to enter into the kingdom of God. If you do this one, then you will enter into the kingdom of God. Like the first Beatitude is, happy you are poor in spirit, for this is the kingdom of God. Happy you are poor in the spirit. There is the kingdom of God. So it goes like that. So in today's gospel, Jesus is telling not only about the doors, how to enter, but he is telling how to become this life fruitful and meaningful. So as Jesus said, you are the salt of the earth. That means we know, all of us, we know the essence of salt. Do you take salt? I think mostly we use salt in our curries or cooking. And without salt, the food is tasteless. Even if you don't add any spices, we must add salt. So salt is meant for giving taste. If there is no salty in our body, if there is no salty in the flesh or vegetable carries, it is not so good and we don't feel like eating. And the first quality of salt is to preserve the things. If things are decaying, if they are getting rotten, if there is a salt, it will preserve. And in the olden days, the salt was valuable things, precious things. Even I have heard, with salt they have purchased some land, houses, with salt, because people did not get salt in the remote areas, because salt was produced in the sea coastal area. So people were buying a land or houses or some other things, just giving salt. So salt was very precious. So our life must be precious. Our life must always preserve the things, like salt is preserving things. And the salt is dissolved. If you put salt in the curry or in water, what happens? It is dissolved. You don't find the substance of salt there again. As we see the other things, it is dissolved. That means the salt is losing its everything. So in the same way, we must give our life like salt. We must dissolve. Salt is not eating salt. We are eating the salty food. So the salt is giving to others. In the same way, our life must be given for others. And in the second parable we find, Jesus is telling, you are the light of the world. He said to his disciples. So the light is diminishing by itself, losing its life. Like when we look at the candle, what happened? In the beginning we had beautiful candle. As the candle is burning, what is happening? The candle is losing its own life, but giving us life. So the light is giving us to see something in the darkness. So our life must be the life of sacrificial life. So without sacrifice, we cannot give light to others. We cannot dispel darkness. Without giving salt, we cannot make things tasty. We cannot preserve the things. So this is what our life is not only meant for our own benefit, our life is meant for others. So this is what Jesus Christ came into this world. And he died on the cross. He sacrificed his life, giving us new life. He saved us from sin and death, not simply preaching or teaching or healing, but dying on the cross. And Jesus is giving us every day the same life in the Holy Eucharistic celebration, in the form of bread and wine. He is sacrificing his life. So that is what we see. This sacrificial life is known as agape love. So unless we sacrifice our life, unless we show our agape love, we cannot see God's presence. We cannot experience God's presence in our life. In the first reading, we heard from the book of Prophet Isaiah. If you see people are hungry, give food. Naked, give clothes. Homeless, give shelter. That means whatever we have, we must share with the needy, with the poor. If we accumulate things for our own benefits, for our own use, then we are not sharing the life of God in our life. The very fact we are Christians, the very fact we are the believers of Christ, the disciples of Jesus, we must always share our own life for God, for others, and for our own benefit. Then only we can build up the kingdom of God and we can enter into the kingdom of God. May the good Lord bless us all in this Mass and help us to understand the true meaning of human life, to live for God and to live for others and to live for our own sake.